Okay, so if we could start off the interview, if you could please introduce yourself and where you come from, what your company is all about.
Absolutely. Hello, my name's Fleur Disney. I'm the communications manager for Animal Aid. We are an animal protection charity. We've been going nearly 50 years, actually. So yes, we're one of the oldest ones in the country, and we work across all areas that affect animals, to trying to make the world a kinder place for them.
That sounds brilliant. So I guess you probably get this question all the time, but what is Animal Aid all about? What is it that you guys do to make a difference?
We do an awful lot of awareness raising because I think many people just have no idea of the kind of legal abuse that happens to animals in this country. So, for example, we're very well known for our investigative work.
Hmm.
We do a lot of undercover investigating. That could be in slaughterhouses, it could be in farms, um, it could be in slaughterhouses where we're seeing former horses who were raced turn up. So, for example, we did a big expose a few years ago that was on BBC Panorama. And shockingly, we found that over 1,000 horses a year who were raced in this country ended up being sold for meat
Oh,
and
crikey.
slaughtered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So a
that's
very
good.
broad range.
Mm.
And yes, unfortunately, it is sometimes very, well, dark and
Mm.
traumatic because unfortunately that side of society exists. And obviously, a lot of human behaviors are really, really negatively impacting animals. But we also have a very much an awareness raising side to our campaigns, which can be really positive. We have an education department who do fantastic work across the country. They go into schools and give free school talks. So that might be to primary children, it might be secondary children. But it's really just inspiring them to be more curious about animals and to again learn about how we can live without cruelty.
Definitely. I think it's something that we don't talk about enough, or maybe I don't know if you remember there was kind of a big boom about it, 5, 7 years ago, but it's something that seems to be swept under the rug since, is that a lot of animals, whether they're working animals as well, is like people forget that, they should have rights. We should look after them. And not everyone thinks about it from, where they buy, meat, to, whether actually they go to like race tracks and stuff like that, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's important to kind of factor in the fact that really millions and millions of pounds have been spent on trying to make these behaviors seem normal
Mm.
or to hide the really negative behaviors. So as an example, oh, I don't know, like marketing terms like free range
Mm.
or grass fed or sustainable meat, that's not really a thing. You can't really have sustainable meat in the way that we raise animals in this country.
Hmm.
But it's, I think a lot of people have a lot of guilt around that. I certainly did myself, around eating animals um and eating milk and eggs. But it's important to remember that, yeah, millions of pounds have been spent on lobbying and to make us kind of accept this behavior and normalize it.
No, it's definitely understandable, and it's a bit problematic, isn't it? When obviously big companies do have a lot of money that like I said, just kind of like swish it under the rug a little bit with these terms that don't necessarily mean a certain thing unless maybe they're actually certified or have been checked that yes, it's definitely free range chickens. Like some say that it's free range, but maybe they're still in a warehouse, for example. And I was like, well, that's not exactly free range, but they
Yeah.
find all the loopholes, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, for example, just on that free range thing, I
Mm.
think it's something like, and don't quote me on this, but I think it was maybe kind of battery chickens could you could have, say, something like 16 chickens per square meter,
Yeah.
but for free range it was like 13. So that when it comes to, like you say, that legal, that loophole,
Mm.
we always think of, oh, great, well, free range means, in an orchard,
Yeah.
no cages whatsoever. But yeah, it's the way of the world, isn't it? But fortunately, things are changing.
Mm.
Things are really changing in recent years.
So obviously, you guys do have a range of things that you work on. You're saying do very investigative um, sections and stuff like that. So what campaigns are you working on currently that you want to raise awareness about today?
I would love to talk about our most recent campaign, which is we're looking to end greyhound racing in the UK.
Mm.
So actually, there's only been 9 countries where greyhound racing is still legal, and in fact, Wales have just announced a ban.
Oh.
Scotland are looking at a ban, and New Zealand have announced a ban as well. So again, as is so often the case,
Mm.
England is lagging behind. But I think so many people, we don't realize how cruel the industry is. Again, whatever animals an industry meet, there's going to be terrible, terrible cruelty. I think we all are familiar with, we've all seen rescued greyhounds,
Mm.
but it's much kind of darker than that and much murkier than that. So, for example, in 2024, so last year, one greyhound died every 3 days as a result of the racing industry,
Wow.
which, yeah, it's a really shocking statistic.
Mm.
But we just there's no kind of general awareness about that.
Mm.
And I think between, say, 2017 and 2023, around 4,000 greyhounds just went missing or died.
Mm.
And that's because, of course, they aren't fast enough, or maybe they ended up with injuries, or a home wasn't found for them in
Mm.
time. And now, very sadly, we've had reports of all sorts of abuse taking place, from dogs even being shot or drowned. And I know this will be very hard for your listeners to hear, because it is horrendous. And I appreciate, even the way I'm speaking about it, I think as an organization, we deal with these kind of things on a more daily basis. But it does still sometimes stab you in the heart. Of course it does. So I know that your listeners will be really shocked to hear some of these facts. I mean, for example, sometimes the dogs, they'll be drugged. They'll even be fed cocaine to make them, run faster.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really, really shocking industry.
Mm.
However, so we currently have a government petition out,
Yeah.
and I'll share with you the link later. So we're trying to reach 100,000 signatures by January, end of, and that will mean that the government will debate the issue in Parliament.
Mm.
Because actually there's only, I think, greyhound racing started in about the 30s in this country,
Mm.
and there were perhaps 70 racetracks. Now there are 17. So it's really on the way out.
Mm.
There's not a lot of public support for it at all.
Yeah, but which is understandable. It's like, I wouldn't be able to imagine my own dog or my mum's dog, being put through that just because it's a sport that, people place bets on and go to watch. Like, it's very hard to think, you've got to remember, it's like, these are lovely animals that just want to be here, exist, have fun. They probably really love their owners, but then, they do get treated in such a certain way, and it's very hard to hear, but it's something that, I personally very much agree that it does need to be phased out. And, like the dogs deserve a better life. It's like, they are, like, as a breed, really quick, which is great for them, but like the fact that they have been exploited like that is unfortunate. And it's, the crazy ways they get them to compete as well. It's like, that's just, where's your heart,
Yeah, yeah, exactly that. And I mean, I think it's interesting that it is still referred to as a sport. And again, do excuse me, let me make that stop. Again, I think that's perhaps in some way, kind of part of the marketing, because
Mm.
really, how is it? It's certainly not fair. It's not like a sporting game.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine if there was any kind of human sport where so many of the participants actually died.
Yeah,
That we're talking gladiators. That went out a long time ago.
for good reason. Yeah.
Yeah, for good reason, exactly. And as you say, goodness, we're ever so busy today. I think it's because we've launched this campaign. It's actually our week of action for greyhounds at the moment. So across the country, there's going to be peaceful demonstrations taking place outside the various racetracks that still exist. Again, just to bring awareness to what's happening. Because this is something that we can actually see phased out. Well, ending quite soon, actually. It doesn't even have to be a long process. So we're very optimistic about this one. And of course, anyone who knows a greyhound knows what gentle, sweet, sensitive animals they are. We've actually got some campaign t-shirts out, and they say on them, I'll race you to the sofa, but that's it. And I think that sums up these dogs, don't they? They're just happy chilling on the sofa with their friends.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, every dog, every cat, they deserve to just have a comfy, cozy life with families that love them so, so much. I personally can't bear to think about, dogs and stuff that do get treated so horribly and pushed for a cause, because like, all they want to do is love us back. They want to be there for us. And for them to be kind of treated in such a negative and destructive way is really, I just say it's not worth it in my opinion. I know obviously some people are going to think a bit differently, but it doesn't seem like it's worth it. We're all about love and peace. Like, why can't we, include the animals in that as well?
Well, exactly. And the thing is, we are animals at
Mm.
the end of the day. We're human animals.
Mm.
Um, and I think we're seeing more and more, perhaps, in recent years, that people are starting to understand the connection, where oppression exists. It's not just, of course, for example, with this issue alone, yes, the greyhounds are oppressed, but equally, the betting industry is making, well, a killing, for want of a better phrase.
Hmm.
And they tend to be very vulnerable people who end up, with gambling debts, even people who take their own lives or
Yeah.
can't afford to pay their mortgage or their rent. So, there's a very real human cost.
Mm.
Again, most times when there's any kind of animal cost, because they're related. When an industry is oppressing one, they're kind of oppressing all.
Mm. I'm so sorry. I don't know if my internet dipped there or yours did, but you're
Oh,
back now. I think it's
all
still
good.
recorded your side, but I do apologize. I will edit out this little
God bless you.
squiff. Um, Yeah, exactly. So obviously moving on from that campaign, which it's very, very kind of topic and key to the heart of this at the moment. But obviously we've now got Christmas coming up, and you have mentioned previously about the whole kind of adopt, don't shop, which is something that I think a lot of people also feel very strongly about. And Christmas is like the high time for that message, because some people do buy just for Christmas and forget that animals do have needs.
I'm sorry, I actually don't know if you dipped out again. I didn't quite hear that question. I heard animals have needs.
All right, I'll just rephrase it, no worries. So, obviously, with Christmas coming up, one of the key messages that I do see from a lot of organisations from South is about the whole adopt, don't shop.
Mm.
I'd love if you could go more into that, because obviously that is, well, Christmas will be very quickly upon us.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that we see so many issues caused for animals by people who just go and think they can buy a life. And for me, that's a very kind of emotive topic, because it seems, well, it's very irresponsible. Not to mention you are treating this creature as an object
Mm.
or a toy. Um, Hopefully we are starting to see an increase in people realizing the need to adopt and to rescue animals.
Yeah.
But as we see time and time again, people will, for example, buy a kitten, and then they won't have the kitten spayed or neutered, and then before long that kitten's having kittens. And obviously it's on an ethical, moral level, it's no good. But most importantly, the reason it's no good is because then you're creating more animals who are at risk, highly at risk from abuse. Now, whether it's a case that, the rescue centres and sanctuaries are full to capacity, so they can't take them in. We know that many animals will end up being killed because there's no space for them in these sanctuaries. But also there's the very real danger of these animals falling into other wrong hands and even being used as bait for illegal dog fighting, which is absolutely horrendous. But unfortunately, it's not a rare thing. There's a big underground network of illegal dog fighters, and so unfortunately, many of these poor animals end up victim of that, or just being abandoned, dumped in a box, left to starve. And it really is heartbreaking. In fact, my own cat turned up to me because our neighbours had done exactly the same. They just got another kitten without thinking through how Daisy, our cat, how she might think about it. And, she was having none of it, so she moved out. We've sorted it all now with the neighbours. It's all squared. The microchip has been changed over to my name. But this is a very big problem. And you're right, we do see this more at Christmas time. I mean, hopefully many people now are starting to get the message. I find it crazy that it still happens, but and you're probably aware as well that many, not all breeders, there are better breeders than others, but there's also so many more informal or unlicensed breeders, or even just actual puppy farms. We hear so many reports of random puppy farms, and you wouldn't even know. It might be in someone's sheds at the back of their garden or in some field, and the neighbours would have no idea. But this is, the mothers are, well, they're treated in the same way as, say, chickens or cow mothers are treated. They're just repeatedly bred and bred and bred until their bodies are completely exhausted. And then those puppies will probably have some kind of disease or injuries. They might not live very long. So it's very sad all around. So yes, we would absolutely encourage people to consider adopting instead of shopping. And actually, that's a really interesting point, because so I mentioned Animal Aid, we're an animal rights organisation. And the difference for us, just to say, is that we feel that if animals had rights and we respected, well, animals do have rights. If we respected their rights, we wouldn't need to worry about their welfare. That wouldn't be an issue. So yeah, this kind of is at the core of it, really. And I think that, so for me personally, I kind of avoided rescuing an animal for a long time because I didn't feel perhaps I was financially responsible enough, or to give it the life to give her the life that she desired or deserved, because she is a queen. And, actually, that's a really beautiful way of being an activist. There's so many animals stuck in shelters, and okay, maybe you can't give them the perfect life that you'd like to offer them, but it's going to be an awful lot better than being stuck in a shelter.
No, definitely. I think as well is that obviously some animals do have certain conditions, as it were, like some may not work well with children and stuff like that, but I think a lot of them, they might be displaying like not the most best behaviors, but maybe it's just because, they are stressed and they're in a unfortunate place. Their owners may have given them up for whatever reason. So they're like, they're missing their humans, and they don't get given enough grace, I think, sometimes. That of course they're going to be like this for a hot minute. It's because, how would you feel if you were put in an unforgiving place? There's so many other people around you, you get kind of talked at, and it's like, cats next to you left, right and center. Of course you're going to be not the not in your best mood, as it were. You know, you'll be like stressed and like anxious and like, what are
Yeah,
we doing here? Like, where's my human? Where they've gone? Like, this isn't right.
exactly that. These are, as you say, perfectly put. These are stressed,
Mm,
possibly traumatized, anxious animals. And a lot of them as well, obviously, some of them will be much older, but some of them are really young. There's some
mm,
puppies and kittens there, so they're still babies.
yeah.
And yeah, they're isolated or abandoned and stressed. So yes, they're not their best selves at that moment. But it does take, love and attention and patience. But
Mm.
gosh, it can be so incredibly rewarding.
100%. So, as we're now drawing close to our podcast episode today, I think the last question on my mind is like, how can people get involved with Animal Aid and support you guys?
Ah, well, that's a lovely question. Um, well, I would first of all ask if all of your listeners could go to our website and sign our government petition to end greyhound racing. That would be amazing. So to do that, we are animalaid.org.uk/greyhound petition, and that should take you straight to the link. That would be fantastic. We also, if anybody is a little shall I call it vegan curious? I don't know. It's actually Vegan Month coming up in November. Now, although that, it might be a very new concept to many of your listeners, it's a big part of what we do, obviously, because so many animals in this country are abused because of food industries. And so as part of Vegan Month, we ask people to take a pledge for the month, and it's just to try going plant-based. And nowadays, I don't know if this is something you've ever kind of dallied with, but it is so much easier than it used to be. Now there's such a wide range of like plant milks or butters or creams, ice cream, cakes, whatever it is. Some really brilliant alternatives. So it's so much easier to do. But you can head over to our website and take the pledge for the month. See how you get on. I'd advise we're on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, most of the socials. So if you're at all interested, give us a follow to learn more. And yeah, just generally keep in touch because we're doing some really exciting things. In fact, we also have an upcoming, this is slightly different, but we also have a science conference coming up. We do it every year. It's called the Future of Science, and it's specifically designed to show that, science that uses animals, well, it's not good science, it's poor science, it's very inaccurate, inefficient, and actually dangerous for humans. Because, even though we might have 98.8% same genetics as a chimpanzee, that point whatever percent means that they're a chimpanzee and we're a human and we are a bit different.
Yeah.
So this Future of Science conference is for young people to bring them on. And if you'd like to learn about more about what we've discussed today, or perhaps even book a school talk, you can find all that information on our website. So again, that's animalaid.org.uk and /Greyhound petition if you'll sign our petition.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been really informative and great to speak to you guys about what you get up to.
Oh, super. Dawn, thank you so much for having us on. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.